You're standing in the most specific window of time that God has ever arranged in human history, not metaphorically, not theologically. The calendar that's in front of you, August 25th, 26th, 27th, these 3 consecutive days carry a scheduling precision that has no parallel. No previous generation has lived through this exact convergence. No ancient prophet could have predicted it, because the circumstances that make this moment possible did not exist until now. This isn't about a random blessing or a coincidental breakthrough. This is about divine timing, executing something so exact, so unprecedented, that when you finally understand what's being orchestrated, the entire meaning of why you're alive right now will reorganize itself. You've been waiting for clarity about your purpose, haven't you? Months, maybe years of listening for direction, while the rest of the world seemed to have their paths clearly marked. You watched seasons pass. You watched others move into their promised territories. And all the while, there was this quiet knowing inside you that your season wasn't random. It couldn't be. The specificity of what you've been sensing, the precision of what you've been waiting for, none of it felt accidental. That's because it wasn't. The divine schedule doesn't work like human scheduling. It doesn't operate on someday or eventually. When God positions something, when He arranges a moment in history, there is an exactness to it that most people never recognize because they're not paying attention to the calendar. But you're paying attention now, and what you're noticing, this feeling that something is aligning on these specific days, that recognition itself is the first evidence that you're meant to be awake for this. Think about what it means that something has never happened before in all of recorded history. Every blessing that came before, every divine intervention, every answered prayer, every breakthrough that changed a life, all of it had precedent. There was something similar that happened at another time, but this carries a weight that history has never held. You're not being called to experience a familiar blessing. You're being called to witness and receive something entirely new, something the universe itself has never hosted before. And it happens on days that you can circle on your calendar. If you've been sensing that something is aligning on these specific dates, drop a 25, 26, 27 in the comments. Let me know you're awake to this. And while you're there, hit that like button. This message is for everyone who's learning to recognize the frequency of the divine. The chosen one doesn't just exist in some abstract spiritual realm. The chosen one is positioned in actual time, at actual moments, with actual divine intention. You're meant to be aware of these 3 days. You're meant to recognize that the stillness before something unprecedented feels exactly like what's happening in your spirit right now. That quiet frequency you can't quite name, that's the knowing that precedes recognition. Most people will move through August 25th, 26th, and 27th completely unaware that they're walking through a historical moment. They'll go about their routines, check their email, answer their calls, make their plans for the next week. They'll have no sense that God has coordinated something on these dates that reshapes what's possible. But that's not you. Something in you already knows these days matter. Something in you is already attuned to the fact that the normal rules might not apply to these hours. That awareness, that subtle knowing, that's the frequency of someone chosen to comprehend what's about to unfold. The scheduling of God isn't determined by human convenience. It doesn't wait for you to be comfortable. It doesn't pause because you're not ready. It moves according to a precision that exists outside of your planning, your doubts, your preparation. And yet this is what makes this unprecedented. You're being invited to align with it anyway. You're being given the awareness that something extraordinary is being orchestrated on these exact days. The question that matters now isn't, what happens if I miss it? The question is, What happens when I'm finally ready to witness what God has arranged? Because that's where the real transformation begins, in the moment when you stop questioning whether this is real and start asking yourself what you're meant to do with this knowledge. What if these 3 days aren't just about receiving something? What if they're about recognizing your role in something far larger than your current understanding? What if the unprecedented nature of this scheduling is also revealing something unprecedented about who you are and what you're capable of comprehending? Most people don't realize that awareness itself is a form of preparation. You're not being told about these 3 days by accident. The fact that this message reached you, that you're reading this on the exact date when this matters most, that your spirit responded to the specificity of August 25th, 26th, and 27th, this is the first movement of something God has already set into motion. The divine doesn't work backwards. It doesn't orchestrate something unprecedented and then hope the right person finds out about it eventually. It positions the message exactly where the chosen one will recognize it. It arranges for awareness to arrive at the precise moment when that awareness becomes an invitation rather than information. You're receiving this because you're meant to receive this, and that changes everything about how you move through these 3 days. Think about what you've been carrying lately. The weight of waiting. The uncertainty about whether what you're sensing is real or if you're making meaning out of coincidence. The quiet exhaustion of holding on to faith when nobody around you seems to understand why you can't just move on to the next thing. You've been holding something unresolved, haven't you? A question that won't settle. A door that won't open but also won't fully close. A knowing that something is different about your season, but you haven't had the language for it yet. That unresolved tension isn't confusion. That's positioning. When God is arranging something unprecedented, He doesn't keep you comfortable in the old season. He creates a friction that pulls you forward. He builds a need in you that can only be satisfied by what's coming. The very fact that you've been unable to settle into normalcy, that restlessness, that refusal to accept the surface explanation, that's evidence that your nervous system already knows something that your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Your body recognizes the frequency of change before your thoughts can name it. And these 3 specific days are when that knowing becomes undeniable. There's a difference between hearing that God has something for you and actually standing in the moment when it arrives. One is hope. The other is arrival. One is belief. The other is witnessing. And what makes this unprecedented isn't just that something is happening. It's that you're being made aware that you're standing in a moment of history. Most people live through extraordinary moments completely unconscious. They move through divine intervention and call it luck. They experience unprecedented grace and frame it as coincidence. But you're being invited into conscious participation with what God is orchestrating. That invitation changes your entire relationship with time. Instead of time passing to you, you're moving into time with intention. Instead of waiting passively for something to happen, you're entering these 3 days as an active participant in something you're beginning to understand. The chosen one isn't someone who is simply blessed. The chosen one is someone who is awake during their blessing. Someone whose consciousness is aligned with what's unfolding. Someone who can recognize the sacred when it arrives because they've been expecting it. And you've been expecting it, haven't you? Even if you didn't have the words for it. Even if you couldn't explain to anyone else why you felt certain that something was shifting. There's been this quiet knowing in you that August wasn't going to be like every other month. That this particular turning of weeks carried weight. That something was being decided on these dates that would ripple far beyond just your personal circumstances. That knowing is the frequency of someone aligned with what God is scheduling. The unprecedented nature of this moment means that there are no templates. There are no instructions from history. No one who came before can tell you exactly what to do, because this has never happened before, and that's actually the point. If this moment required you to follow someone else's blueprint, it wouldn't be unprecedented. It would just be a repetition wearing a new name. This is calling forth something original in you, something that can only emerge because you're standing in a moment that has never existed before. The divine is inviting you to create your response to something that has no precedent, to trust your instincts in a situation where nobody's instincts have ever been tested, to become something new, because the moment you're entering demands newness. That's what it means to be chosen for an unprecedented season. You've probably sensed this shift in your own life, the way old strategies don't work anymore. The way people who used to understand you suddenly seem out of sync with where you're going. The way traditional answers don't satisfy the questions you're asking now. That's not a sign that you're losing faith. That's a sign that you're graduating into something that requires a different kind of faith. A faith that doesn't rely on precedent. A faith that can stand in the unknown, because the unknown is exactly where God is positioning you. And He's positioning you for these 3 days specifically. The calendar matters. August 25th, 26th, 27th, these aren't random dates that happen to be when you read this message. These are coordinates. These are the specific hours when something is shifting from potential into manifestation. These are the days when the invisible work that's been happening behind the scenes finally becomes visible. These are the moments when you stop waiting and start witnessing what you've been praying for, what you've been believing for, what you've been holding space for, even when doubt crept in. It's not arriving in some abstract future. It's arriving in actual time, in measurable hours, in 3 consecutive days that carry a historical weight that will reshape how you understand God's precision. But here's what most people get wrong about unprecedented moments. They expect them to feel monumental. They expect lightning and thunder and unmistakable signs. They expect to feel like they're standing in history. And sometimes that happens. But other times the unprecedented arrives quietly. It arrives in a shift of perspective, in a conversation that changes everything, in the decision you finally make, in a recognition that something you thought was blocked is actually clear now, in a door opening that you'd stopped expecting to open. The unprecedented doesn't always announce itself with fanfare. Sometimes it whispers, and you need to be listening to hear it. Comment UN preheatant if you're ready to stop waiting for precedent and start trusting what God is scheduling for you. And if this resonates, subscribe to Born into Light, because this is just the beginning of what you're about to understand. These 3 days are calling for your full attention in a way that ordinary days don't. Not because you need to do anything performative or spiritual to earn what's coming, but because you're being invited into conscious participation with the divine timing that's already in motion. You're being asked to show up aware, present, receptive, ready to notice what shifts, ready to recognize the small signs that indicate the large transformation that's unfolding. The chosen one is chosen not just for what they receive, but for their capacity to recognize and steward what arrives. And that capacity is being activated right now on these dates, in this specific window. The question becomes, will you move through these 3 days asleep, or will you move through them awake? Being awake means something very specific in this context. It means you're not looking for external permission to believe something is shifting. It means you trust the frequency you're already picking up on, even if nobody else can measure it. It means you move through these hours with an internal knowing that supersedes doubt, that outlasts confusion, that remains steady even when circumstances look exactly the same on the surface. Wakefulness isn't about seeing something dramatic happen. It's about noticing the subtle recalibrations, the way a conversation lands differently than it would have a week ago, the sudden clarity about a decision you've been avoiding, the unexpected opening in the place where you'd accepted closure, the person who reaches out at exactly the right moment, the opportunity that appears without you having to chase it, the inner peace that shows up when you expected to feel anxious. These are the languages that the unprecedented speaks. You won't find it in grand gestures, you'll find it in the whispers, in the small shifts that only matter if you're paying attention, in the moments that seem insignificant to everyone else but feel seismic to you. That's how you know you're awake, because you're tracking the frequency that most people miss entirely. And here's what happens when you move into these 3 days with that level of consciousness. You stop being a passive recipient, and you become an active co-creator with what God is arranging. You're not just waiting for something to happen to you. You're meeting the divine momentum halfway. You're positioning yourself to receive what's arriving. You're creating the internal space where an unprecedented breakthrough can actually land and take root. The preparation happens on the inside first. Your nervous system needs to adjust to the frequency of what's coming. Your beliefs need to expand to make room for something that has no historical precedent. Your heart needs to open to the possibility that you're worthy of receiving something that's never been given before. These internal shifts, this is the real work happening on August 25th, 26th and 27th. It's not about perfect words or perfect actions, it's about alignment. When your internal state matches the frequency of what God is orchestrating, that's when the external world reorganizes to reflect it. That's when doors open. That's when people suddenly support what they used to resist. That's when resources appear. That's when timing accelerates. That's when the impossible becomes inevitable. But it starts with you becoming internally aligned with what you're beginning to receive. This is why some people move through extraordinary moments and miss them entirely. Their internal frequency was still tuned to the old season. They were still vibrating at the level of doubt, of unworthiness, of this can't actually be happening to me. And so the unprecedented moved right past them, looking for someone who was ready to receive it. Someone whose inner world had already made space. Someone whose faith had already expanded. Someone who believed they were worthy of something that had never happened before. That's you. You're the one who's ready, not because you're perfect, not because you've earned it through perfect obedience or perfect faith, but because something in your core has already said yes to what's coming. Something in you has already released the need for historical precedent. Something in you has already decided that if God is scheduling it, then it's real, regardless of whether anyone else believes it yet. That's the frequency of the chosen one, and these 3 days are when that decision gets tested and deepened. Because here's what happens next, and this is important to understand before you move into August 26th and 27th. Once you've made the internal shift, once you've aligned your frequency with what's arriving, there will be a part of you that wants to second guess it. There will be a voice that whispers, maybe you're making this up. There will be doubts that arrives precisely when your faith is needed most. This is what most people call the test, and they're partially right. But it's not really a test of whether God is faithful. It's a test of whether you are faithful to the knowing that's already activated inside you. The doubt will come. The delay will feel longer than it should. The signs might seem ambiguous instead of crystal clear, and that's exactly when your wakefulness matters most. That's when you need to trust the frequency you picked up on before the doubt arrived. That's when you remember that unprecedented moments don't always announce themselves with certainty. Sometimes they announce themselves with a quiet knowing that you have to defend against your own fear. This is the part of the story they don't usually tell you. The chosen one isn't someone who moves through their season without friction. They're someone who moves through the friction with faith intact. There's someone who can hold both the knowing and the uncertainty simultaneously. They can sense the breakthrough while still living in the present moment. They can believe in what's coming while responding to what's here. They can be awake to the unprecedented while also being grounded in the actual. That's the maturity that an unprecedented moment requires, and it's exactly what you're developing right now in these 3 specific days. When you look back on this later, and you will look back on this, you realize that August 25th, 26th, and 27th were the days when you chose to stop waiting and started witnessing. When you stopped hoping that something might shift and started living as though the shift had already begun. When you stopped asking, "Is this really happening?" and started asking, "What do I need to do now that this is happening?" The external circumstances might take time to fully manifest. The evidence might accumulate slowly. The full scope of what God has scheduled might not become visible until weeks or months from now. But the internal transformation that starts immediately, that happens now. That's what these 3 days are orchestrating on the inside of you. You're becoming someone new, not a better version of yourself, not an improved iteration of who you've always been, but someone genuinely new. Someone who has stood in a moment of history and said yes to it. Someone who has chosen wakefulness over comfort. Someone who has released the need for precedent and embraced the unprecedented. Someone who understands that being chosen isn't about becoming worthy. It's about finally accepting that you've always been worthy, and this moment is simply revealing it. The breakthrough that's arriving on these dates isn't just a change in circumstances, it's a change in who you are. It's a transformation so fundamental that when people who know you well try to describe what's different, they won't quite have the language. They'll say you seem more confident, or more peaceful, or more alive. What they're actually sensing is that you've aligned yourself with something greater than your own limitation. They're witnessing someone who has stepped into their purpose. Someone who has said yes to being chosen. And that changes everything about how you move through the world. The unprecedented doesn't stay contained to one moment. Once you've experienced it, once you've learned how to recognize it, once you've developed the capacity to be awake during divine timing, it becomes your new normal. You start to see the fingerprints of God's precision everywhere. You start to notice the way He arranges things. You start to develop a sensitivity to the sacred that most people never cultivate because they never stop to pay attention. This is why you're supposed to be awake right now. Not so you can have a dramatic story to tell people, not so you can feel special or chosen in some superior way, but so that you can begin to live in constant alignment with the way God actually works, so that you can move from a life of hoping something might happen to a life of witnessing what's already being orchestrated, so that you can step into a partnership with the divine that transforms everything, not just this moment, but all the moments that follow. You're not just receiving a breakthrough on August 25th, 26th, and 27th. You're stepping into a new way of existing, a new way of trusting, a new way of moving through time with the divine as your actual partner, not just your theoretical hope. And once you understand that, these 3 days become something far more significant than just a date on the calendar. They become the moment when everything reorganizes itself around what's actually true. The world won't necessarily look different on August 28th. Your bank account might be exactly where it was before. Your circumstances might appear unchanged to anyone observing you from the outside. But you will be different. Your internal landscape will have shifted in ways that are irreversible. And that internal shift is what makes space for everything else to reorganize. This is what people misunderstand about divine timing. They think the external breakthrough comes first, and then you believe. But the actual sequence is reversed. The belief comes first. The internal alignment happens first. The shift in consciousness arrives before the circumstances catch up. And then when the timing is right, when you've become the kind of person who can steward what's coming, the external world finally reorganizes to match the internal reality you've already accepted. You're in that in-between space right now. You've already said yes on the inside. You've already released the need for precedent. You've already chosen wakefulness, but the external world hasn't caught up yet. It's still reflecting the old season. It's still showing you what was true yesterday. And that's where most people lose faith. That's where they second-guess the knowing. That's where they convince themselves that nothing is actually happening because they can't see it yet. But you know better. You know that the invisibility doesn't mean it's not real. It means it's still being positioned. It means the divine is still arranging the details. It means everything is exactly on schedule, even though the schedule is invisible to everyone but you. Hold that knowing close. There's going to be a moment. Maybe it happens on August 26th. Maybe it happens on the 27th when something small will shift. A text will arrive from someone you haven't heard from in months. A thought will land in your mind with sudden clarity. A door you thought was locked will open when you test it. A conversation will take a turn you didn't expect. A coincidence will be too perfect to be random. And you'll know. In that moment, you'll know that you weren't imagining this, that the frequency you were sensing was real, that the unprecedented is actually here. That moment of recognition, that's when your faith transforms from hope into certainty. Not because you'll have proof. The proof will still be accumulating. The full manifestation will still be unfolding. But you'll have evidence that what you've been believing in is actually real. You'll have proof that God is precise, that He doesn't just work in generalities, He works in specifics. He shows up in the exact way, at the exact time, in the exact form that will reach you where you are. That's the signature of the divine. Precision, personalization, timing so exact that it can't be explained as coincidence. And these 3 days are when you're learning to recognize that signature. Once you recognize it, you'll see it everywhere. You'll notice the way God has been coordinating things in your life for months, maybe years, all leading to this moment. You'll see how the breakdowns were actually breakthroughs, how the delays were actually positioning, how the closed doors were protecting you from paths that would have led you away from this, how everything that felt like loss was actually creating the empty space where something unprecedented could arrive. This is the comprehensive reframing that only becomes possible when you finally understand how precisely God orchestrates things, and it changes your relationship with trust forever. Because once you've experienced this level of coordination, once you've felt the weight of divine precision showing up in your actual life, you can never go back to generic faith. You can never again accept vague promises or unclear timing. You've tasted something too specific, too real, too undeniable, and every subsequent moment of your life becomes an opportunity to track that same precision, to notice that same divine signature, to participate consciously in that same partnership with God. You're not just experiencing a breakthrough on these 3 days, you're being initiated into a new way of existing, a new literacy in the language of the divine, a new sensitivity to the way God actually works in the world. And that initiation changes everything about your future. Every decision you make from this point forward will be different. Not because you'll suddenly have all the answers, but because you'll have a new reference point. You'll know what God's precision feels like. You'll trust your ability to sense His coordination. You'll move through uncertainty with a confidence that comes from having felt His exactness already. That's the lasting gift of these 3 days. The external breakthrough will fade, the miracle will become normal, the dramatic will integrate into your everyday life. But this shift in how you understand God, how you relate to Him, how you participate with His divine timing that never fades, that becomes the foundation for everything that comes after. This is why you're being made aware of these specific dates. It's not just about receiving something unprecedented. It's about learning how to be the kind of person who can recognize and partner with the unprecedented. It's about developing the spiritual maturity to move through divine timing consciously. It's about becoming someone who doesn't just hope God is working behind the scenes, someone who knows it because you've learned to read the signs. The calendar coordinates are important. August 25th, 26th, 27th. But the real coordinates are internal. They're the shift in your consciousness. They're the moment when you stop waiting and start witnessing. They're the transformation in how you understand your own worthiness and your capacity to receive what's been orchestrated for you. You're standing in a doorway right now. On one side is everything you've known, the waiting, the uncertainty, the hoping that something might shift. On the other side is the actual shift, the witnessing, the knowing, the stepping into what's already been arranged. These 3 days are the threshold between those two worlds, and you have to choose which world you're going to occupy. If August 25th, 26th, or 27th just answered something you've been asking God about, write 1 Hess in the comments. I want to know you're here, you're awake, and you're witnessing this with me. This community is for people who recognize divine precision. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what comes next. The beautiful thing is, you're already choosing it. The fact that this message reached you, that you're paying attention to these specific dates, that something in you responded to the idea that something unprecedented is being orchestrated, that's you choosing. That's you saying yes. That's you stepping across the threshold, even before you fully understand what's on the other side. Trust that choice. When doubt arrives, and it will arrive, remember that the doubt is just the old season trying to hold on to you. It's fear dressed up as wisdom. It's the familiar trying to convince you that the unknown is dangerous. But you've already tasted the frequency of what's coming. You've already felt it. You've already said yes on the inside. The doubt is just noise trying to distract you from the signal. Stay tuned to the signal. The signal is in the knowing you can't explain. It's in the peace that shows up when the circumstances don't warrant it. It's in the recognition that suddenly makes sense of things you've been confused about. It's in the unexpected kindness from someone you'd written off. It's in the door that opens when you finally tested it. It's in the 1,000 small coordinations that add up to one undeniable conclusion. Something is happening. Something unprecedented is being orchestrated. Something that has never happened before in all of history is arriving, specifically for you, specifically now, specifically on these 3 exact days. You're not imagining this. You're not making it up. You're not reading too much into coincidence. You're waking up to what's actually true. And the waking up is what changes everything. So here's what you need to know as you move into the rest of August 25th, as you wake up on August 26th, as you live through August 27th. You are not crazy. You are not making this up. You are not mistaken about the frequency you're sensing. You are awake. And being awake means you've already crossed the threshold. The internal shift has already happened. The alignment is already in motion. The unprecedented is already arriving, even if you can't see it yet. Even if the evidence hasn't fully accumulated. Even if people around you don't understand what's different about you. You know. And that knowing is everything. These 3 days are your permission slip. They're your invitation to stop apologizing for your faith, to stop explaining your knowing to people who don't have the frequency to understand it, to stop shrinking yourself so that others feel comfortable with who you're becoming. These are the days when you step fully into being chosen, not arrogantly, not with superiority, but with the quiet confidence of someone who has felt the precision of God working in their actual life. You're meant to be here. You're meant to be awake. You're meant to witness what's being orchestrated. And the fact that you're reading this, that you're paying attention to these specific dates, that something in you responded to this message that's not an accident, that's the divine reaching you exactly where you needed to be reached. Trust it completely. The external breakthrough will come, the circumstances will shift, the door will open, the person will call, the opportunity will appear, the peace will arrive, the healing will manifest. The restoration will become undeniable. But none of that matters if you lose faith before it arrives. So these 3 days are about anchoring yourself in the knowing that precedes the seeing, about becoming so solid in your internal alignment that nothing can shake your faith, about choosing to be awake, to be present, to be receptive to what God is orchestrating. This is your moment. August 25th, 26th, 27th. Mark it, remember it, live it consciously. Because years from now, when you look back on this window in time, you'll realize that this is when everything changed. Not because something dramatic happened on one of these dates, but because you decided to stop waiting and start witnessing. You decided to say yes to being chosen. You decided that your faith was stronger than your doubt. You decided that the unprecedented was worth believing in, even without proof. That decision, that's what transforms everything. If this message reached you at exactly the right moment, if something shifted in you while reading this, if you felt recognition or knowing or peace settle into your bones, write, "I'm ready," in the comments. Not for me, for you. As a declaration to yourself and to the universe that you're stepping into this season consciously, that you're choosing wakefulness, that you're saying yes to what God is orchestrating. Write it as an anchor. Write it as a promise to yourself that you're not going back to waiting. And if this video resonated with you, if you felt the frequency of this message in a way that matters, please subscribe to Born into Light. Because what's happening on these 3 days isn't just for you. It's a signal of what's awakening across an entire generation of chosen ones. And you're meant to be part of this community. You're meant to witness other people's awakenings. You're meant to remember that you're not alone in this knowing. The unprecedented is arriving, and you're chosen to be conscious of it. Step into these 3 days fully. Trust the precision. Recognize the divine signature. Say yes to being awakened, and watch what happens when someone who's truly awake finally steps into their moment. This is your time. August 25th, 26th, 27th. This is when everything changes.